We've been hearing about the jnani. The jnani is the person of wisdom, the person of direct experiencing. Vasishta continued, he is a jnani who is unaware of or oblivious of the consequences of actions, because he is established in self-knowledge and ignores both the individualized mind and its objects. We must be very careful not to take this the wrong way. Unaware of or oblivious of the consequences of actions. This sounds like somebody who's headstrong, who acts first and thinks later, but it's not that at all. It's somebody who has got no investment in the actual rewards or consequences of an action. They are doing what is appropriate, not what is in their own self-interest. So they're not given into some wacky impulse or some destructive impulse, which is what we normally think of when we describe somebody as not having any awareness of the consequences of their actions. So the jnani is ignoring both the individualized mind and its objects. The jnani is not operating from the ego sense. He is a jnani whose psychological conditioning has been utterly removed. His intelligence is free from perversion. His knowledge is such as does not lead to rebirth. He engages himself in the simple acts of eating and dressing, and in such spontaneous and appropriate actions which are free from desire and mental activity. He is known as a Pandita. The diverse creatures have no purpose for coming into being, or for their continued existence. They are not real entities, though they appear to be so. The diverse creatures here are our notions. So, is this saying that you're a notion? As far as I'm concerned, that you're a notion? Or as far as you're concerned, I am a notion? Yes, it is. You have a notion of me. You cannot know how things are from the experiencing from where I am. We can only ever have an idea about somebody else. We might find that idea to be reinforced by other ideas from the past and from the future. But it's only ever an idea, a notion that you've got. There's clearly something going on. But all we can ever have is a notion about somebody else. We might feel it's a very accurate notion about somebody, but that's all it will ever be. Let's say we're with somebody, and then that person goes away. Then what we've got is a memory of that person. We've got a feeling about that person. What that boils down to is memory and feeling, and we might have some active thoughts about that person. That's what we've got. We do not have that person. All we've got is what we would call a representation of that person. But even that's not accurate. All we've got are our notions based on memories, which are themselves based on notions, and feelings, sensations. That's all we can ever have. We say we know somebody when we can predict their behaviour to a certain extent. In other words, when the notions are consistent with each other, when we've got a consistent set of notions centred around the notion of somebody. So it says here, they are not real entities, though they appear to be so. This is our notions that we are talking about. Whether we can say that they're real or not is another matter. The point here is that we should not confuse our notions with reality. We do not know the reality of anything outside our own awareness. In fact, the whole point is there can be no reality outside our own awareness. It's awareness which gives anything its reality, even a hypothetical reality. So this is what we're being asked to examine. This is what we're being asked to examine in relationships. It's interesting to see what kind of reactions these statements evoke. Some people get quite indignant. Oh, I'm being reduced to a notion. No, you're not. Nobody's being reduced to a notion. What you're being asked to examine is how you give your notions reality. The causal relationship is brought in later on in order to rationalize this unreal creation. Is there a purpose for the appearance of a mirage? In other words, why is it like this? They who try to find the reason for the appearance of these optical illusions are trying to ride on the shoulders of the grandson of the barren woman's son. This is great, I love this. If you're trying to understand what's going on, all you can do is understand it in terms of notions. Understanding is about notions. It's about fitting things into notions. And therefore you can never get to reality if you're seeking to understand it in terms of notions. This is intellectual, conceptual understanding, which has its place. It has its place, it's a mechanism, it's something which works on a certain level, but it is not reality. So we must be quite clear about this. This is what we're caught up in, believing that our notions are reality. They're not reality. The reality is the experiencing that is going on. Feelings, sensations, experiencing which we ascribed to the various sensory modalities. The only cause for these optical illusions or illusory appearances is non-perception, for they disappear when looked into it. In other words, we're not really perceiving anything. We think we're perceiving things, but we're not. We've got notions of perception which are non-perception. True perception is direct description or direct realization of what's going on. When rightly investigated and perceived, they are found to be the Supreme Self. But when they are perceived through the mind, the conditioned jiva arises. This jiva, when correctly investigated and looked into, is in fact the Supreme Self.